The Hardy-Weinberg law, also known as the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, is a principle in population genetics that states that the allele frequencies and genotype frequencies in a population will remain constant from generation to generation in the absence of disturbing factors. Conditions for Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. Large population size. A large population size helps to prevent genetic drift, which can cause allele frequencies to fluctuate randomly. No migration. There should be no movement of individuals into or out of the population, as this can introduce new alleles or remove existing ones. No mutations. Mutations can introduce new alleles into the population, altering allele frequencies. Random mating. Individuals must mate randomly with respect to their genotypes. No natural selection. Natural selection should not favor one allele over another. The Hardy-Weinberg equation is a fundamental principle in population genetics. It provides a mathematical framework for studying genetic variation in a population under certain conditions. Essentially, it predicts how gene frequencies will be inherited from one generation to the next, assuming no other influences like mutation, selection, or migration. This equation can be incredibly useful for researchers trying to understand the genetic structure of populations and for identifying factors that might be causing deviations from expected genetic patterns. So, yeah, it's quite an important tool in the field of genetics. P squared plus 2pq plus q squared equals 1, where p is the frequency of the dominant allele, q is the frequency of the recessive allele, p squared is the frequency of the homozygous dominant genotype, 2pq is the frequency of the heterozygous genotype, and q squared is the frequency of the homozygous recessive genotype. Implications of Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. It provides a null hypothesis for testing whether a population is evolving. It can be used to estimate allele frequencies and genotype frequencies in a population. It can be used to predict the frequency of recessive phenotypes in a population. And it can be used to study the effects of genetic diseases. Deviations from Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. Deviations from Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium can indicate that one or more of the conditions for equilibrium are not met. This can be due to factors such as genetic drift, migration, mutation, non-random mating, or natural selection. Example. Consider a population of flowers with two alleles for color red, represented by R, and white, represented by R. If the allele frequencies are P equals 0.7 for red and Q equals 0.3 for white, then the genotype frequencies can be predicted using the Hardy-Weinberg equation. P squared equals 0.7 squared, which is 0.49 for RR. 2pq equals 2 times 0.7 times 0.3, which is 0.42 for R and R. And q squared equals 0.3 squared, which is 0.09 for RR. Therefore, we would expect 49% of the flowers to be red, RR, 42% to be pink, R, and 9% to be white, RR.